The economy in the town of Mount Pleasant is strong and is continuing to grow. Today, I talk one-on-one with the Economic Development Director for the town of Mount Pleasant, Matt Brady, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Matt Brady, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks, Quintin. It's great to be here with you as always.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. You know, you are the Economic Development Director for the town of Mount Pleasant.
That's right.
And before, obviously, you were the Economic Development Director for the town of the city of Goose Creek.
That's right, yeah.
So what got you from Goose Creek to now Mount Pleasant?
Well, I'd been in Goose Creek for about five and a half years, and this position came open at Mount Pleasant. I had read their strategic plan that I brought with me as just a visual aid. Yeah. It had been kind of around for about a year, and they were looking for someone to basically execute the plan.
Yeah.
I had known a lot of the staff here at the town, and just thought it was a good move for me to come over here and see what kind of damage I can do on behalf of the town of Mount Pleasant. It's been a great fit. It's a great community, one of the premier communities in the country, and it's got a lot of momentum in the economic development realm right now. And so that's what I wanted to do, and that's what's got me here.
Got you here. So now that you're here, so what is the state of the town of Mount Pleasant's economy?
Well, it's like everywhere else in the region. We're cooking pretty good right now, generally, and from a kind of economic activity standpoint. So we are on solid footing to start with. We do have, as you know, as everybody in the region knows, there's been a pretty steady growth rate over time, and that's a challenge and a blessing at the same time. But we are working to, right now, create jobs for people. We believe that our best targets are in line with the CRDA's targets of life science and information technology, along with kind of white-collar firms that fit our community profile, like financial firms, marketing, PR, publishing, architecture, and engineering. And so that's what we're working on right now. In our plan, we also have designated to go after and enhance the entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem, and we've got some exciting things in the works to make that happen right now too.
Oh yes, yes indeed. I love being an entrepreneur myself. So let me ask you this: what was the economic activity 6 months ago?
Well, it was very much the same. They just did not have a dedicated person to kind of go out there, work with our partners, directly recruit businesses, and I am blessed that I get to wake up every day and think about economic development in the town of Mount Pleasant. And prior to that, they did not have just a standalone staff person dedicated to that. So that's sort of the difference. We've been working with the Harbor Entrepreneur Center to come over here. So that's a different thing that will be, I think, an exciting game changer for us and for the region, for them to move over this direction. And so that's one big difference, but I would say the biggest difference is that they have someone thinking about this 24/7.
24/7. So how many businesses are you currently recruiting to the town of Mount Pleasant?
Well, it's kind of an amorphous number at this point. I don't have a number that says a dozen. We have several targets in the pipeline working through our partners. I am a one-man operation over here, so I lean heavily on our partners at Charleston County, the Regional Development Alliance. We have wonderful relationships with those people who do a lot of the recruiting. We have some exciting tech companies that are looking right now at being placed in the Harbor Entrepreneur Center. We have some other exciting things that are happening in terms of the built environment.
Yes.
Between a little bit of light industrial and Class A office space, we've got about 1 million square feet of really amazing new product in the pipeline that will kind of be dispersed all over town.
Yes,
so the next step will be to work with our partners and just grind and pound the pavement to get those spaces filled up.
So you talk about that space. Where exactly in the town can these be located?
So there are commercially zoned properties all over town. We have designated corridors that we have identified as hotbeds for economic activity. Patriots Point, Wando Welch Terminal area, Carolina Park, and Johnny Dodds Boulevard. And I'm probably missing one or something, but those are areas that we can either have new construction. Johnny Dodds probably lends itself to infill and adaptive reuse. And truly, for somewhere like Johnny Dodds, there's an opportunity for artisan manufacturing. So by that, I mean someone, not like a big manufacturer, but someone may make a boutique product. They have 4 employees. They're just looking for a space. And it's also pretty cool because they can sell on the retail on the front end of it. So opportunity there. So there's opportunity everywhere in town. So it's really all over, but we've kind of identified those spots as our economic corridors.
Is North Mount Pleasant in that particular project?
North Mount Pleasant?
Yes, sir.
Well, like Carolina Park is in there.
That's what
So
yeah,
right. Well, I knew what you meant. North Mount Pleasant, South Allendale, whatever. That's a joke for everyone on TV.
Yes.
But yeah, it is. It's part of it. So it's really dispersed throughout town. We have an exciting speculative development in Carolina Park going on right now that we will work with the developer to get great tenants in there. And it probably lends itself to having some good life science tenants in there, which we think is sort of a burgeoning, growing part of our region's economy.
And you talk about the economy. So what is the growth rate for the town of Mount Pleasant?
It's historically has been pretty exponential over the last couple of decades. Looking at some data recently, I think it's probably slowed to below 5% annually, and you kind of caught me off guard on that question, so don't quote me on that, but it has probably stabilized a little bit. The council has made some decisions about the growth. They have a building permit allocation system that helps the town kind of do what it can to get ahead of the growth in terms of infrastructure and planning for it. And that said, it's a good time to mention we're doing a zoning code rewrite right now. And while I'm not heavily involved in it, I'm lucky enough to get to touch every department in town as I get to do my day-to-day job.
So you talk about that growth rate. So what is the community profile?
Our community profile is it's typically a more affluent community. It is a good mix of ages, and the community profile, from kind of my perspective, lends itself to these white-collar firms and positions. We're a very highly educated community, so firms that are in the tech sector or in life sciences, people who would require a PhD to do these very advanced jobs, they're already here, a lot of them, and this is a community that, as we are recruiting these firms from all over the world, this is a great place for them to land, raise a family, just be a part of our community as we kind of grow and kind of weave into our cultural fabric here.
So what is that culture fabric post-COVID?
Well, I would say that we are back. Recently had some retail data done for us through a certain third-party consultant. We are back in terms of retail economic activity. COVID changed everything for everyone, and I do think that office is a moving target. People are trying to understand what the hybrid versus work from home versus come back to the office situation is going to be. But we have some beautiful office space that gets filled up. They're able to get the square footage rates that they're looking for, and we just want to help those owners and brokers and tenants navigate that process and create some jobs here.
And you get a nice view of the Rabbit Isle Bridge.
That's right. There are some beautiful projects that look right over the harbor, and I cross the bridge every day to get here, and it might sound a little bit Pollyanna, but every day I cross it, I can't believe I get to come over here and represent the town and tell people how great this community is.
So what is the story of the town of Mount Pleasant from an economic standpoint?
Well, we still have a very good small town community vibe in a lot of ways, but we are a community that has a lot of educated people.
Yeah.
We have a ton of retail activity.
Sure.
We do have some gaps in the retail activity that we could probably work with, and we'll do a little bit of retail as well. But our story is that we are already a community that has some great businesses, but we're ripe to get some new ones in town. We're ripe to be an international destination for folks looking at the region, at the state. And I think over the next 5 years, Mount Pleasant will probably become the innovation hub for the state of South Carolina.
So how do you close those gaps between now and the next 5 years?
You go out and recruit folks to come here. I think that the Harbor Entrepreneur Center plants a flag in the ground for us, saying that we are all about entrepreneur stuff, about innovation. The Harbor Entrepreneur Center is all about collision. So by collision, they mean these different firms, kind of maybe even in completely different sectors, but they're all housed together. They can collide and create new ideas, create new companies. I think that's really an exciting thing that we'll make a big deal out of. And the One Region project, that's a collaboration between the Chamber of Commerce, CRDA, and the COG.
Oh, yes.
They have designated the Harbor Entrepreneur Center as their lead agent for innovation and entrepreneurship, which is a main vertical for that plan. And so I think we are at the fledgling stage of the town being the leader in that sector, in recruiting and nurturing that ecosystem.
So how do you nurture that ecosystem right now?
Well, we've got great office space to do it. There are a lot of companies that are already in town at different sort of stages of growth. Right now, I'm doing a lot of finding out who's here.
Oh, yeah.
Going to talk to them and finding out what their needs are, so that as new office product comes online or existing space opens up, I can get them in there. We can work with our partners at the county, region, and state to incentivize, if necessary, to help them however they need it. SCRA is another great partner for us, and so that's how we nurture it now. And I think it's going to gather momentum and stopping it.
So where are the existing spaces right now?
All over. Those corridors that I mentioned,
yes, sir,
are also corridors because there's already great space there, and there's opportunity for growth there as well. And that includes, it's not called out in the plan necessarily, but Coleman Boulevard, where the old village stuff is, that's got a lot of opportunity for. There's some adaptive reuse, some redevelopment opportunities there as well. So it's all over. We are a great destination for your office, for your company. And, one of the solutions to traffic is to have your job where you live. And so if we can get these companies here, make sure that people aren't crossing the bridge every day to go work their job downtown North Charleston, Somerville, that will reduce traffic and probably make everyone's quality of life a little bit better, especially the people in Mount Pleasant.
And I'm going to get to that in 20 seconds. But what is the current quality of life right now in the town of Mount Pleasant?
Well, it's excellent. It's a great community. Nobody likes traffic, and that's a thing that we have people on staff here that think about all the time, how to fix that. And I know there's some projects in the works to try to alleviate some of that. Don't ask me on the specific details of that, but other than that, I think that Mount Pleasant has an amazing quality of life. I've only been here a short amount of time as an employee,
Yeah.
but I've met some people who have been here for their entire lives.
Yes.
And I think part of what economic development is and what the town can do is to find ways to preserve that quality of life, do small scale economic development to where if someone, like I was talking about, has artisan manufacturing, especially if it's related to kind of Mount Pleasant's history and tradition, we nurture that how we can. But truly, it's like I said, across the bridge every day. Can't believe I get to sell this gem of a community.
So, what traffic ideas from the town right now actually meets your economic development plan?
You know, the only thing that I have kind of been involved in is some of the work on 526 near the port.
Right.
But truly, we'll adjust and do whatever we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
We being me, in terms of recruitment,
Sure.
and helping any companies that might be affected by traffic locate where they want to be.
So, with the town going as it is right now, Matt, how do you diversify that tax base?
That's the whole plan, man. It's
Okay.
that's part of what economic development is too. It's to have more commercial businesses that can support the tax base through ad valorem property taxes, through business licenses. If it's a retail operation, through sales taxes. And that's how you do it. You recruit companies to come. You look for the best fit for your community. And that is from these big job creators to retail establishments or food and bev that could be regional or national in nature that fit your community profile. And we've done some work on that. We have a target list. We'll be standing in the front office of some of these places to say, hey, when you're thinking about where you're expanding, consider Mount Pleasant.
Yes, yes. So, okay, so how many retail stores are actually getting, sales tax off of all of this?
I think we have. I'm not sure how many retail stores we have total in town.
Okay.
I did do a retail study, but you kind of caught me flat-footed on that question, so I don't have the answer to that one yet.
No worries. What intentional and innovative investments have Mount Pleasant actually made to make the economy more sustainable, connected, and inclusive for the next 10 years?
So that is a really good question, and that's kind of what we're all about. So I think one of the first investments the town did was to create this plan, which is sort of my playbook for day-to-day stuff. It was done by S.B. Friedman, who also did the One Region Roadmap work for that collaborative effort. So that's one investment. I think another investment is hiring staff, which they did with me. That's kind of like and it's not just about Matt Brady. It's about investing in a person that thinks about it all the time. And they've also invested in the Harbor Entrepreneur Center to get them in the space that they're going to over on Wall Street.
Wow.
And so that is a very strategic and intentional investment. As we kind of move forward, we will be intentional about the companies we recruit. It would be sort of a waste of my bandwidth to go out and try to find some really big, heavy industry that's just doesn't have anywhere to go in Mount Pleasant, right? But those 5 clusters that we've identified, those are where we're going to go. That's what we're going to go and try to find. And so that's intentionality that we're looking for. I think as the region grows, as we keep doing this, we'll really plug in with the folks with the One Region effort and think about things like, does everywhere have broadband in Mount Pleasant? What kind of access to services and resources are out there for our communities that are either truly in the corporate limits, or how can we partner with settlement communities out there to see what kind of services we can provide for them? How can we get them plugged into jobs? And it's a cliche, but economic development's a team sport. So how can we be intentional about working with our partners on workforce development, job creation, recruitment, business retention, things like that?
So, what communities in Mount Pleasant actually have those corporate limits now?
Well, it's annexation laws in South Carolina are very interesting. So it's most of what you consider as Mount Pleasant, but we do have some donut holes here and there that may not be in corporate limits.
So, where are those donut holes right now? How does that affect your plan?
Well, it doesn't really affect my plan at all. They're kind of scattered throughout. I would have to get a map to kind of show you where they are, but it doesn't really affect my plan because we're kind of thinking about this as a holistic kind of effort. And like if we recruit a company, we want them to locate in the corporate town limits, but they're still going to provide jobs for everybody in the region, regardless of a corporate limit that to many consumers may seem arbitrary.
You talk about those settlement communities. So, how many African American businesses do you want to recruit to the town?
As many as want to come in here. I think that Mount Pleasant has a rich history. I think that it's important to recruit African American businesses, make it easy to navigate our internal processes to truly find a profitable and successful place to be in town. So I don't have a number, but I want to recruit and work with partners externally on getting these businesses in town.
And then how many businesses do you want to get into town?
Well, as many as want to come. No, I mean,
I'm being redundant. I'm sorry.
But no, I think that the businesses in general, I don't have a set number.
Sure.
There would be a saturation point at some point if we don't have enough space for them to come in. But right now we have for lease retail space, office space, and light industrial space. So filling that up, that's our goal.
So, how is economic equity a foundation of your economic development strategy?
In terms just in equity in general, I think that is extremely important. I think it's becoming more important or more sort of self-evident to the people who work in this field over time. In this plan is also language about attainable housing, about making sure that the people that work these jobs in Mount Pleasant can live in Mount Pleasant, and that is probably the biggest piece of the puzzle that speaks to equity for me right now. That's sort of something that we're investigating and trying to find out how we can make it happen.
So, how many homes in Mount Pleasant are actually attainable?
That's an issue. I think the data that I saw, like in December, that the median sales price for a home in Mount Pleasant was somewhere between $715,000 and $730,000. That is not attainable to most people, even if you work a very good job. So that's what we're trying to figure out. There are some projects that are too preliminary to talk about, but that we're looking at. How can we create attainable housing? And we don't mean what people might think of as low income. We're talking about teachers and nurses, public safety officials, people that work good jobs but may not be able to afford something in the $1 million price tag.
Right.
So that's an important thing for us.
So, how has access to education in the town actually improved this town's economic equity?
We have excellent schools in Mount Pleasant. People want to be in Mount Pleasant, so I think that is a positive thing for us. I had the privilege to visit our campus of of Trident Tech yesterday. They're very busy over there. They do a lot of general education, but they are able to serve kids, young adults who are right here in town. I think that everybody kind of wants to be in these schools in Mount Pleasant, so that's probably more of a question for the school district to answer, but there are tremendous workforce development opportunities here in the town and in the region, and I think access to education is huge for equity, obviously.
And going back, obviously, to what you were talking about earlier as far as attainable housing, is there a gap between jobs which Mount Pleasant actually paid and what residents can actually earn in the town.
So we do believe there is a gap, right? So that's why a lot of people who work their job in Mount Pleasant aren't able to live in town, and it has changed dramatically in the region over the last even 5 years. The cost of rent and the cost to own a home, and so that's something that we are thinking a lot about. We're thinking about how can the town be a positive player in this situation, and but at the same time, we want to make sure that we preserve the quality of life for the people that live here. So the trick is finding where you build homes, how you build homes, what kind of homes, without jamming up the roads, without overburdening the infrastructure that already exists here. And so that's what we're trying to figure out, Quintin. It's a delicate balance, but we have to make sure that we don't do the opposite in terms of quality of life that we're trying to achieve.
And this is one last question for you, that is, and please stick with me. But is commuting dynamics your biggest concern among these because of the difference in pay levels between jobs inside and outside Mount Pleasant?
Community dynamics, you said?
Commuting, excuse me.
Oh, commuting. Oh, yeah. So that is something we think about a lot. We've started some kind of early talks with the folks at CARTA about how we can make it easier for people who don't live here to get here. We are working with the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce to create a East Cooper Hospitality Council, and the idea would be to work with people that are in food and bev, hospitality generally, who hire these people. Their businesses are over here. Find out what they need, how we can plug in and make that happen. So yeah, commuting, it's an issue. My commute typically takes 20 minutes, but it can take an hour. If you're taking public transit from North Charleston to get here, it can take you well over 2 hours to get to Mount Pleasant. So depending on the route and which way it goes. So we are kind of in the early stages of figuring out how do we do this? What's the next move? So that's where we are with that.
Well, I know you got to run, so thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course.
But Matt Brady with the Town of Mount Pleasant Economic Development Department, thank you for your time again, and welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks, Quintin. Appreciate it.
Anytime.